So we were talking about the idea of ascending or descending. And this, according to the yogis, there's 8,400,000 species of life. Of that, every species, they say, is evolving. So when it dies, it goes into a higher body. Until they get to a human species. Now in this human species, there's an opportunity to evolve or devolve. We can understand that in our own lifetime, in our own day, in the course of a day, or in the course of a week. We can look at our week and say, what a horrible week that was. What a horrible week that was. Why did I make all these horrible choices? Sometimes we see it after a meal. Why did I eat that meal? So we know that there's times that we eat meals that after we eat them, we feel good about ourselves, we feel more powerful, we feel more enlivened, we feel more awake, and more aware, and more conscious. And then we've done things where I wasn't even thinking, I just shoved it in my mouth, I ate the whole tub of ice cream, I wasn't even thinking. So this idea of evolving and devolving, we witness it. See, the animals are not bound by karma, according to the yogis and the Vedas. We are. It means we're responsible for our choices. Therefore, our choices create new bodies. Right? So the idea is that if we're consuming things through our senses, it's not just food we consume, by the way. We're consuming all of the elements through this body. I mean, we get hung up on food in our culture. We get, well, is that a conventional tomato or an organic tomato? I only want to eat an organic tomato, right? But truthfully, it's not just the tomato itself. It's how that tomato is consumed. But we're also, and that's one of the elements of Earth's day. There's other elements we're also consuming. To be under fluorescent lights, right? To be under fire. Fire, we're consuming fire. And that fire, when it's not in its pure form, just like our tomato, better to get something that doesn't have pesticides, herbicides, fungicides on the tomato. But there's also bastardized forms of fire. For example, if you go see a sunset, if you've ever seen a sunset, there's a type of peace that comes over you. After you consume that fire, so to speak, it's almost as if you're meditating. You don't have to talk, you just sort of watch it. Or if you've ever seen, sometimes with my kids, we'll go to build a campfire. We'll go in the woods and just build a fire. And you just watch. And you know what happens when they're making a fire? Nothing. They're actually at peace. Why? Because you have a purest form of fire as opposed to television. If you put kids in front of the television and say, okay, it's time to turn off the television, you will see a kid, or take an iPad away from a kid. That type of fire, it's Raja and Tamas. This passion and the gunas are lower energies, and therefore it's like an addiction when it gets taken away. It doesn't create peace. You know, of course, like with a TV show, there's so many different elements, whether you're watching a nature show or you're watching a horror movie or pornography, whatever it is, there's different gunas. It's like a rainbow of gunas. Gunas are like energetic modes it's the way yogis analyze the material world. So we are consuming pure forms of fire or defiled forms of fire. Earth, cleaner forms or defiled forms. Water. Where do we get our water from? Most of the water in major cities is unpotable. You can't drink it. Yeah, we drink it. I mean, it's not going to get you initially sick, but it's not water from its clean source, from artesian wells or springs that are shooting out from the earth. Right? Water, air, right? The quality of the air, it goes without saying. And then there's the sound in air. The sound, we're also consuming sounds. So if you grew up in a household where the sounds were very violent, your father was very aggressive, or your parents were dominating the household, that type of sound you consumed and it created you. So here's the idea. We are consuming at every moment. The yogi wants to develop and sharpen a discrimination of what we consume. Not just with food, but food also. Right? We're trying to create a strong discrimination of what we let in. This is actually one of the qualifications of what a yogi is. We're very careful what we let in. Why? Because what we let in is creating us. The people we hang out with. We are consuming a collective mind, isn't it? Go to like a New York Jets game where everybody paints their faces green. You're consuming that. That's a collective ego and mind that you're consuming just being around it. Right? Everybody stands up and cheers. You stand up and cheer. That is part of a collective ego that you're consuming. right? And it actually rubs off on you. Just like the place we live, it rubs off on us, right? The people we hang out with, the people that we marry, the books that we read, that's also consuming. The movies that we choose to watch, or choosing no media in our life, right? All of these things is creating our new body. And this is also a further elaboration on the idea of reincarnation. Are we evolving? Or are we devolving? Are we becoming more sattvic? Are we going more towards goodness? Or are we going more towards rajas and tamas? As this age that we live in progresses, everything becomes more rajasic and tamasic unless we make a distinct choice. No, I'm going to go another direction. You may notice that in the last 20 years, it's become really intense. The foods we eat are exponentially worse than they've ever been. The junk foods you eat, they're worse than they ever were 30 years ago. At the same time, you can find the best foods, the best quality foods. Compared to when I was growing up, I grew up in the formula. That was my first food, my most important food for a baby to eat. It was the formula. It was made by Carnation and Nestle's. That was my most important